Okay. So hello and welcome everybody to the December meeting of Wildfire Safety Advocates of Waikoloa. Just as a reminder, we are recording on the cameras. It'll be up on YouTube tomorrow, hopefully, so everyone can see it. And hopefully one of these days we'll hook up the whole live stream thing, but we're not quite there yet. We're going to have a quick, short, more informal meeting because it's December and there's been a lot of stuff going on. People are busy with their lives, but just a quick review. We had two things that happened since our last meeting in early November. The first one is Bob and I went to the Leeward Planning Commission on November 22nd, and we testified in front of them. And they were extremely enthusiastic. I don't know, it was a really positive conversation, and they listened. They really listened. They took notes, and yeah, I don't know, do you have anything, Bob?
Well, I thought the most important thing was that every commissioner took out his pen and started taking notes while we were testifying. That's always a good sign.
Yeah.
You know, that they are actually paying attention to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And then after we finished and we were heading for the door, Zendo jumped off the platform and ran around and chased us out the door.
Yeah, he went and found us in the hallway.
And said, please make sure that you weigh in on the capital budget for the next year and don't wait for the planning process to play out, which I take as good advice. And our next step is to set up a meeting with the new mayor and to talk specifically about that.
What was the topic?
So the Leeward Planning Commission they were talking about the General Plan 2045, and we were talking about our comments for it and the need for evacuation road in the village.
Well, specifically for the general plan, we as a group asked them to prioritize a single secondary access road for the village before the other roads, because I want to say there were 7 other roads identified as needed in Waikoloa Village, and 7 is, I think, we determined impossible to accomplish.
Well,
so we asked them for one first.
Our testimony pointed out that the policy laid out in the plan is that every community should have at least 2 roads of access, and that for purposes of the capital planning, projects should be prioritized to satisfy that policy objective. And our testimony was, we agree with the policy, that's great, but you're not implementing it. There is no piece of this plan that prioritizes the projects to get us a road into the capital budget. So that's what we asked them to do. Change the plan to make sure there is a road identified as the priority project for capital budgeting purposes.
Yeah, because James and I've been on the South Kohala Transit Committee, and there were a number of people that went up with shovels. It looked like they were going to be digging out a second road, and so we've been spending a whole lot of time to say, no, it'll be maybe 20 years from now. But it was Jeff Green and a number of other people up there, and it was just ridiculous. People thought the second road was coming tomorrow.
This is the event in May.
Back in May? Yeah. So we're at a point, so just to update you on to where we're at, catch you up to speed right now. That was the groundbreaking for the evacuation road that Summers West is going to be installing in association with Nanakai at the back end of the village. That road is going to be a single lane dirt evacuation road that's going to go from the Queen K to the Kamakōa wastewater treatment plant. That is what they've committed to right now. They have a mass excavation permit in at the county right now, waiting for that. As soon as that gets in, shovels are going to hit the ground, and we're going to have a road probably next summer. A dirt road. That only goes to the wastewater treatment plant, which is only about halfway up the hill, right? So
well, let's say it'll be more than dirt.
Well, it's chip seal.
It'll be like
comparable to Hulu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And then that only goes to the wastewater treatment plant. From the wastewater treatment plant to the skate park is going to be covered by surface roads associated with the Kamakōa Nui Workforce Housing Project. That is also in at the planning department right now. They're waiting for permits for that surface road to be finished. That'll be about 18 months once that all gets approved and put out. The only thing that is missing here is an upgrade from the emergency evacuation single lane road to a full 2-lane road open to traffic 24 hours a day. We're getting drawings, the private developers are making drawings for that right now, and we are hopeful that they pay for the whole thing. And say, hey, now we'll write a check for about $25 million in January. If that is not the case, we are here for the backup of saying, hey, public funds need to be coming in, and this is where. And that's what the testimony is.
Yes.
I just wanted to.
But we're not waiting 20 years.
We're not waiting 20 years.
That is not going to happen.
We had a lot of long drawn out conversations when Cindy Evans was in office at our leadership meetings, and we were really strongly requesting that the road, when it's finished, the final road has a gross vehicle weight limit on it. And she said the county council could approve this, although DPW said that they couldn't. But I'm just concerned because all these big trucks are going to take the shortcut as the crow flies, and they're going to be going through the ice.
But we've got to be able to get the fire trucks up there.
Yeah.
So they can't be waited out.
Well, they could have,
An exception.
yes.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm just saying, because otherwise it's just gonna be, Paniolo Road is gonna be a hot mess.
I hear you. We're not civil engineers, and I don't want to start throwing up more roadblocks and saying, hey, this is a demand, this is a thing that we
No.
need, and then all of a sudden they have a reason to say no.
Yeah, we were talking.
I hear you, and we'll.
It might be
we'll bring
cheaper
that.
to
I don't
build.
think that's a reason to say.
You don't think
It
so?
might be
I'm
cheaper,
not worried about that.
it might be cheaper to build,
It
you know,
might be.
because you,
Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe.
So, and I was just thinking, hey, it's
Yeah.
gonna save me some bucks.
Yes.
Are you needing, is there money needed from the 25 legislative session for the connection to Queen K?
Yeah, for the state, yes, there is money required for that, but Representative Tarnas will not be able to ask for that money until we've got some maps and he knows how much to ask for. The other component in this whole equation is, let's say the developers don't pay for the entire road, but they can contribute X amount. We don't know what that X amount would be, and then we would need to have some sort of three-way partnership where the developers give a certain amount of money, the county chips in a lot of money, and the state chips in a certain amount of money. And that is going to be an equation that we're going to have to figure out come January.
Yeah, but that's separate from the intersection.
Exactly.
She's
exactly.
asking about.
Oh, you're asking about the
I
intersection?
mean, our communications with Rep. Thomas are that he will put in a request in this next capital budget for that intersection, and he is waiting for Ed Sniffen to give him a dollar amount that it will cost HDOT to build it. And we've asked Sniffen to give him that number, so we've been pushing them both to get that done. So we think it's going to get into the budget for the next cycle.
Has there been conversation with Tim Richards at all?
Yeah.
On the side, we've kept him up to date to the fact that we have had these communications with Thomas and Sniffen, but we haven't gotten a firm commitment from them. So if anybody wants to, we should probably.
We
send
reach
him
out, we
an
keep
email.
him up to date. I had a really good conversation with his wife at the inauguration, so he's up to date on things, and that was great.
That doesn't count.
No, it does not count. I know it does not count, but I'm just telling you, email is our preferred communication method, and he's not quite as good at emailing responsive on it as Tarnas is, and that's just the way it goes. As we've been going back and forth. We're not trying to keep him out or anything like that. It's not like trying to snub him. It's just the way that we've been communicating. It's been faster, more smooth with Tarnas.
Yeah, Thomas has been really on it.
Yeah.
I know.
Tim came to our meeting when we had the water supply reps here, and he had a lot of really good and positive information. And I think that we're largely aligned, and there's no daylight really there.
Yeah, I spoke with him personally when he came to our meeting, and he thanked us for providing leadership on this issue and said he would help us get it done. So we haven't had a specific commitment for this budget cycle item, but I have not gotten any signals from his office that he's not going to be on board. But we'll follow up with him.
Because it'd be good to have both of them have that figure coming from the Senate and the House, so that it
Well, they've
marries
gotta
up.
have the same
Yep.
figure. you
And
know,
so it
but
marries
they-
up when they go to the,
But we're waiting for Sniff and
got it, absolutely.
cough up the number.
Yep.
Well, when I spoke with Tim, he said that, you know, there's some politics that may be going on, and he's not certain about how things are gonna pay out, so. Just keep that in mind.
Politics always.
That sounds-
Well,
That's-
it's worse.
So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, the governor did commit to get that intersection done here. And I've not heard any signals from anybody that they're gonna resist getting the intersection done. All the hesitation, I wouldn't say negative, but the hesitation comes for a $25 million price tag for the full road. That's where we hear, well, maybe we don't have that money. But not the intersection, we heard that at the intersection.
Can we pause for a moment? There's pizza over there. There's a 4-year-old that wants some.
Continue or.
Well, if you want, we can also just keep talking in general in the background as this is going.
But if you have any further conversations with Tim, ask him specifically. And let us know what you hear. I mean, that's what this whole meeting process is about. We share with each other, you know,
I just
what we're
met him
doing.
at this event, so I would like to get in touch with him and get to know him a bit better.
Okay.
Are you in touch with his?
Margaret, yeah.
Yeah, she.
Anytime I email him, she's the one that responds
I know,
back. So
yeah,
that-
I know.
Again, I'm not
I
trying to
didn't
throw
know.
him in his
I
bus,
know,
it's
I
just-
didn't, yeah, I know.
Communication's hard.
It gets wonky.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me stepping back on the developer doing the initial 1-lane dirt road, who's gonna be providing the maintenance for when we have road? That's scary.
Well, that's another argument for why we want to not slow down.
Right.
We want to maintain the construction so there is no maintenance phase right there.
Yeah. Because who
I
would
don't think
watch
that that's actually been decided, quite frankly, because I don't think anyone is anticipating there being a maintenance cycle because they want to keep shovels
Okay,
rolling.
okay, I'm just, yeah, I mean, if they run out of money or.
I mean, that's why we're trying to get the public money backed up, right?
And my other
Yeah.
question is, I mean, this is like really pulling something out of the sky here. Is there some way, because obviously there's gonna be a lot of money, $25 million is gonna generate a lot of tax money. Is there some way that they can work on something that's very creative to lessen the costs for all this stuff that they can give them, you know, like, I mean, less on taxes? I mean, I'm just pulling this out of my.
What do you mean? I don't even understand what you're.
Well, some way that instead of excise tax or, you know, like on the asphalt or, you know, I mean, I'm just trying to pull something out that
I mean, the money-
that I've never seen be used before, but to get creative to get the damn thing done.
Yeah, but the vast majority of the funds are going to labor, right? And that's that's not a tax, that's a.
The materials.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a sizable amount that's materials, I bet.
Yeah.
but
I'm just.
I don't think that we can tell Charles Summers how to spend his money to build this road. It's sort of what it comes down
But
to.
if the county and the state.
And if the county and state come in, yeah, sure. but
Yeah, I don't know, just, I've
It
never
is-
seen anything like it, I'm just
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and
coming up with a
you
crazy
know,
idea.
I've had the dialogue with Tarnas about what happens if Summers doesn't put up all the money. And Tarnas is saying he thinks that not in this next budget cycle, but in some future budget cycle, you'll be able to get some state money for this project, even though it's a county road. And he said that's gonna be like pulling teeth, because the state legislature doesn't like to put state money into county roads, but he's willing to go out and fight for some state money. But he doesn't know how much that's gonna be at this point, because we don't have a firm cost estimate. And we don't have a commitment from the county as to what the county share will be. And we will be going, and if Summers says, no, I'm not gonna pay for the whole road, we will go back to Summers and say, well, will you put up some money for the permanent road? And our hope is that, you know, if he's not willing to put up 25 million, he might put up 5 million or 7 million, so that the cost to the public is less. So there's a lot of things to play out here. But the first thing that we need to get a response to is Summer's decision whether or not he's gonna pay for the whole thing. And if the answer is no, then we have to play this other game. But we're waiting for that answer, and our commitment is to hopefully have some response from them by January.
And our absolute preference is for them to say yes, because that will be the fastest solution.
Yeah,
And it will be acrimonious if he says no. Like, it's just gonna be hurt feelings and it's gonna be slowing it down, and that's gonna be a thing. So we'll have to sort through that. Hopefully we don't have to, but
Yeah, except it won't be that acrimonious if he says no to the whole thing, but he says yes to some. Right?
we'll see.
So we don't know. But that's where we are. It's a hell of a lot further down the road, pun intended, than we were in May.
Yeah, and that brings me to the next event on our list here that we attended, the Hawaii County inauguration. Multiple people here in this room were present on Monday, and beyond our county councilman, congratulations on now being the sitting active government member. The other highlight for me was Kimo's speech. I mean, the first thing that he talked about was sirens.
Yeah.
Second thing he talked about was Mauna Loa. Third thing he talked about was evacuation routes.
Yep.
We have gotten his attention.
Yep.
That is a big deal. And they care about us, they know about us, and we are gonna be on the agenda. So that's a big thing. So it was a big celebration of it's the night and day from where it was a year ago. So that's a big deal. So we don't know where the money's coming from, but we're gonna have a meeting with Emo and with the planning director, Jeff Darrow, and with our county council representative and public transportation committee chair, James Eustace. And I think also there's gonna be the executive assistant for public safety in this meeting. So we're gonna keep it pushing forward, and they care about us. So yeah, it was good. It was a good time. Anything else to say about that? No. Okay. So the next little update here is that our meetings are going to shift to the second Wednesday of each month next month by request. So our January meeting is going to be on January 8th, I believe. And so in the same room once again, so that's there. And then the thing that I wanted to do today is I wanted to sort of get an inventory. We've done this a couple of times over the summer about like what different fire protection infrastructure things there are around the community, and also what hazards there are, and what sort of organizations contribute to those things in some way or form or another. Just what's the state? What's the status of wildfire safety in Waikoloa right now? And then we can hopefully look back at it next year and see what we've improved upon. And so we can both see, what needs addressing and focus ourselves, and then reflect on what has benefited. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in a holding pattern in terms of waiting for the developer to touch base with us in January. So this would be a good exercise in figuring out, like Matt said, the state of wildfire safety in Waikoloa, so we can hopefully reflect on it next year and say, look at all the progress we've made. I guess before we jump into that, are there any other questions? Anything else anybody wants to cover or share? If not, we'll dive into sort of talking through where we are with all of these high-level topics up here.
I do have one question. I apologize if you talked about this. I was when you talk about the second road. But what's the status of it being open as being cleared as an evacuation road? What's the status of that?
The mass excavation permit is in process at the county right now. They have it there. When Bob and I sat down with the mayor, we said, is there anything we can do to make it go faster? And he said, no. He's a good public servant, and that's where it's at. So,
Where's the chemo?
So with the form.
that was with Mitch and Zendo, but we'll bring it up again and ask it once more what the status is next time we talk to him and check in on it.
So the county has
putting together a lot of his staff, and some of the names that I thought were very applicable to what we're talking about.
The county has two actions to take. One is related to the permits for the excavation work that Summers will do. and Summers is getting the engineering work completed, and that's their commitment, is they'll have that ready in January, which will give us a final cost estimate. But the other piece is that the county is about to issue contracts to pave the section of the road that runs from the end of Kamakoa Drive now down to the sewage treatment plant. So that, if you've walked down there, you know it's all graded, and it's been used by the heavy equipment that drives down to the sewage treatment plant, but it's not paved. So that will become paved, and that's part of the contracting work for the affordable housing project that is being built there. So that is what the county expects to complete within 18 months. So that section of road, which is almost a mile, will be done by the county. And it's the Summers piece starts at the end of that and then runs down to PK. So we're waiting to see that contract get let by the county. And the mayor assured us that it was on track to be let soon, but we haven't seen it happen. So that's one thing we're tracking.
So let's say next summer we have a chip seal road and there's an evacuation that has to happen.
Yeah.
Can anyone go down that road legally if it's privately owned by the developer? Like, can we use that as an evacuation route?
We're supposed to be able to, yes.
That's what it's for. I mean, that's what
But like, it's not county owned yet, right? It's private land.
The one we have right now is not county owned.
Yeah.
And they just kind of took it over, and I think
But
they're,
there is some agreement
there's
though.
MOUs.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an easement.
Yeah.
For public use.
Now, there's another conversation to be had though around community education, because the team, the Firewise team, I think, did a lot of work around the hulu holo holo and making sure people know where that is. But that's I think something to attack.
Yeah.
When we get there, I would guess we would maybe own that, or we would work with Firewise.
Oh,
The
no,
education
no,
part.
oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I offered to John that we would have a celebratory event to open that we would host it when the evacuation road is open. As long as that relationship is positive, I'd be happy to be a part of that and make that happen 100%. But, you know, we'll see where.
And Bert said that you'd be fine with that.
Yeah, he seemed interested in it, so it didn't seem like.
He wanted to make sure everybody knew it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they know that it's not useful. It's not being used. So, yeah.
Cool.
But who has the keys to the gate and all of that stuff is not identified yet. It hasn't been figured out. And I'm sure it'll be very similar to Hulu, and we'll keep it followed. We'll keep following the whole thing. Do we not want to do the poster first? We just want to talk? Is that better? I think it is. I'm not committed to it.
That's a good sequence. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
Does everyone want to take a color and start writing ideas, or should we just have
Or
one
should we just
person?
have a conversation and
Not
get
ideas,
on
it's
one?
just
Oh,
Let's go one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, one at a time.
Okay. Do you want to write?
yeah.
She looks real excited.
All right, which one are we gonna start with?
Evacuation plan.
It was actually pretty quick.
Great.
The status is Tallmadge has said the county will release an RFP, that they have money for an evacuation study to be done for Waikoloa Village, and the RFP should be released. I think Matt called him 2 or 3 months ago. He said there would be an RFP released soon, and we haven't seen it yet.
I emailed him this afternoon, but he did not respond to me, but that's not uncommon.
So
No,
there's
it's slow.
going to be an RFP, and then proposals will be received, and then the county will decide who to give this money to then do an evacuation study on the village, hopefully get us an evacuation plan.
We as a group have decided to try and preload some questions that need to be answered, and David Foster has volunteered to take that on as a task. So once the RFP is issued, we will be able to go send whatever contractors are, what our priorities are as a community. I also, a few of us participated in the amazing shape at the school. I just so happened to be seated next to the the chief of security for the school, the head groundskeeper or whatever, Dave. And he really wants to be a part of that process too. So the school is ready to be looped into the evacuation study and plan, and we know the right people for that. So.
And he's taken CERT.
Yeah, yes, so that's great.
So,
Yes.
if you ever came to one of our senior meetings, you would realize that this is a real issue with us.
We're not allowed to go.
You're not allowed to go, but
Right.
James will be there.
As an invited guest, though.
He's coming as an invited guest.
I'm a senior.
We always talk about
I can
that
go.
there are a lot of elderly people here
Yep.
who may not know that there's an evacuation. And so how do you notify these people?
We don't know yet, but.
And that's,
But then that should be a question.
For about 2 years, we've
Yeah.
been talking about that because everybody knows. And you've got a lot of people who are elderly and they're alone.
Mhm.
So it's not like they're going to be able to see their neighbors being evacuated. And this is an issue that we've talked about and we don't know how to deal with
I
it.
promise you that will be raised with, when it actually gets started, when the RFP comes in, we will 100%.
No, this is critical, especially knowing the demographic of the village. It's extremely important, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for this purpose, we shouldn't be waiting for the RFP.
No, we're gathering the questions and everything now. Yeah,
Yeah,
David's
that's
sort of doing it, and we record that sort of stuff down, and I
Can David
appreciate
go to
it.
this meeting?
Was that?
Can David go to the seniors meeting?
Yeah, you can.
David.
Thank you,
I'm not even a volunteer for,
Yeah.
more than.
It's a specific demographic that obviously.
Oh, we can let him know to make sure he connects
Yeah,
with this
that's part of
group
his
and then the
question
concerns are,
for David.
yeah.
Now go with.
Going to just back to the RFP, my understanding was that it was supposed to be either released end of this year or in January, so it's somewhere around, it's close, but
Okay.
nothing defined. That was my conversation with Tom.
Okay.
Well, we also have a member of WSOC core group whose son does evacuation plans and is familiar with the village, and so we're kind of like keeping an eye on it, and his company is very interested in submitting a bid.
Yeah, but we also don't want to interfere with.
We don't want to
contracting
interfere.
processes,
So
but we
we're
want to make
waiting.
sure, and there's other, we make contacts, we want to spread it out. We want to make sure that as many people apply
We
for it.
would like the
as-
best evacuation plan and money.
And you want people to apply for that, for that contract. I mean, if they have like just one, then it's like,
Yeah.
are they gonna act on it if there's only
Yeah.
one bidder, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah, but this is a company that works a lot with Paradise, and then he lives in the village part-time. So I think that that's really knowledgeable. So that's their-
I think that we need to address having orderly evacuations by zone.
The zoning is recorded.
What zone?
By zone, if they have different sections, I mean, like, I live 3 houses from,
You identify the parts of the community that
that would be the first, like, depending on where ground zero is, like, if it's coming from the barn, I'm from the stables.
Yeah.
And I'm right there, and I've got all the, Hawaiian Electric.
Yeah.
big-
at the stables.
I don't wanna be
Yeah,
in a
the worst
gridlock
spot would be the
with the flames
Yeah.
coming towards me in my rearview mirror, because people in Sunset Ridge are leaving before I can get out.
I mean, I think our true hope would be whoever wins the bid would then come to the community and we would have an opportunity to voice these
Right.
ideas and concerns.
Right.
And that they would take our feedback seriously, but then go create something fantastic.
I don't want us to go in with the understanding that we will only accept an evacuation.
No,
It has X, Y,
I'm
Z.
just bringing it
Yeah,
up, I thought that's what we
yeah.
were talking
Oh,
about,
no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
I think it was more high level, like what's the status of an evacuation?
Oh,
No,
I'm
but-
sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
have that, that's great, that's perfect.
Okay.
An extra
Yeah.
question that we want to add in and say, hey, this is a thing that has been raised many times.
Yeah.
Is this an appropriate solution? But I do want to defer to the experts.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of question
Yeah.
that we want
Precisely.
David
We want
to
David
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
our list of concerns.
Yes.
And there used to be a bus that would go around Waikoloa, which is no longer going around Waikoloa. But that would be another, something to look at to see if we had a bus that could go pick up people And don't drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did have one of the last evacuation at the school, but nobody showed up.
But it wasn't an asset for the community though, like,
No, it wasn't.
Like, it wasn't used, but
The county
it was an
did
option.
provide it, yeah.
In 2021.
Yes, because I put out yeah. And
How
nobody
did
showed
the
up.
bus get here?
I'm sorry, how did it get here?
But I mean, like, the bus, there was a fire and the bus all of a sudden showed up?
No, it was the
Yeah.
county, I mean, I was in a text feed and I sounded like I was in a pinball machine because Tarnas and Mayor and everybody's
Oh.
texting and trying to get the information to Waikoloa, like, just out on social media.
I see.
But was the bus just sitting on the school grounds already?
No, I don't know, I just know that they were supposed to go to the school.
Yeah, I remember they
And
were supposed to
Michelle
go
was
and
at the school
gather
that
and then
day.
leave. Yeah.
She was in the building, you know, but,
I think Maui plays a big part into it, right? I just think of like no cell phone coverage. No one
Yeah.
has cell phone access. So, you know, all right, bus is here, who are you gonna send that message to when there's no
and if
service?
you're by yourself, how are you gonna
Right.
get to
Yeah,
the
right.
school?
Yeah.
Well,
you gotta
that's
go to school.
that's an education piece too, right? So if the plan, the study was not, I think they're calling it a study.
Study,
of the
okay,
plan.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what Talmadge corrected.
No, that's fine, yeah,
It's like, it's not a plan, but we're just gonna see that. Yeah, so it, which is,
a responsibility thing.
yeah.
That's
But
fine, yeah.
I think through that whole process, it's gonna be an education piece and reaching different parts of the community, whether it's the seniors, the school, and different, you know, we're talking about this in Waimea too, the vibrant Hawaii, the hubs and the resilience hubs, and how do you disseminate information when certain systems are down. So some of it has to be an early education and disseminate information out. You know, when like you have on the back of a door at the hotel, like these are the things.
Yeah, go here.
Yeah. So that's already kind of ingrained in the system. And then because if things go down, then you know you're not going to be able to get that messaging out. So people kind of have to have some of that knowledge ahead of time.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
It's a challenge though. I think we're still trying to work through in Waimea too. I mean, we talk about the zone stuff too in Waimea. If there are particular instances around the community, who do you, what areas do you enact and activate and so forth?
No shelter in place.
Yeah.
It seems like, aren't you gonna want Wi-Fi? Aren't you gonna want Starlink?
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's only limited, right? There's only so much
but
just.
then, but do we know,
Yeah, but you
at
have
a
that-
time like that, are you
And
gonna
then
want
what is the
everybody to go
password?
to, say,
I don't know.
KTA?
Yeah, you have that gathering, like a
Park,
gathering spot, and the
Yeah.
community needs to identify that gathering spot.
Yeah, and if the
Typically
power
it's
is
at the
cut off,
school.
Yeah.
your modem at home is.
Yes.
Yeah, we have Starlink, yes.
So,
Yeah.
So you should have power.
We have a
Yeah.
Starlink.
Unit.
okay,
That's the way you should.
Julia, you've heard from
And
anyone
install
at KTA?
it.
What's
Yeah,
that?
yes.
You've heard from anyone at
No, I haven't
KTA?
written in the formal letter. I'm gonna do it by, probably for the end of this week, or early next week.
okay, let's move on from evacuation plans. I think we're not gonna write it here today and come up with the right solution. Interior lots. There are a total of 7 interior lots in the Waikoloa area. 6 are on WVA property, 1 is on county land in Paniolo Estates. Access roads have been cut on 4 of the 6 owned by WVA. And what, 1 of them has been fully cleared? Is that or 2 of them have been fully cleared? Nando's Trail and the one up at the front behind the corner, right behind the apartments, what's that called, Waikoloa Heights, right at the beginning of
Hills.
Waikoloa Hills, thank you. We are still 4 years, we are in year 1 of 5 on the process, at the end of year 1 of 5 of the plan clearing from the Waikoloa Village Association.
The WVA made a 5-year plan based on how much money they could allot to clear the interior lots that are their responsibility. And yeah, they didn't have enough money the first year to clear all of the lots.
But
Now,
is there any discussion of putting those lots to use?
Nope, it's just, the discussion has all been about getting it to a point where they can maintain it, that's it.
well,
Nothing is,
yeah, to access
nothing
it.
beyond that.
a lot of them right now are even inaccessible. If there was a fire, no emergency cars could get in there. So that's the first, that's what the current conversation is about. I don't think I've heard any discussion about using them.
Well, I keep hearing discussion about a dog park.
That's not in the interior lots. That dog park is gonna go in at Waikoloa Park behind the baseball field. If
Courtesy of Charles Summer.
courtesy of Summers West, if they ever actually finish that whole project back there. That's the, they're gonna clear out the cow base. But no, I mean, that'd be great, having a fruit forest, having all sorts of stuff, but that just hasn't been part of the plan yet, right? So like, I would say we're about 20% of the way completed with this 5-year project, and that's where it's at. I haven't heard any plans for the Paniolo Estates lot, that just exists. It's owned by the county. And I don't know, just at some point here, the conversation, you know, Kathleen, about those palm tree pictures, the interior lots, this is where we start coming into the code conversation and the status of that we are currently not a wildland urban interface, WUI. And so chapter 17 of the fire code is not in effect, which means that that you don't have to clear the trees. And the WVA does not have to clear the interior lots, and the county does not have to clear these other interior lots, and we don't have to clear the line, stuff into the lines.
And Parker doesn't have to clear any of their land above us.
Fire breaks don't
There
have to be
is no
maintained.
rule.
Literally, none of that stuff has to be dealt with because it is not enforced. And this is a bigger sort of conversation. I don't know if we want to put this up as like a status item or anything like that, but maybe on interior, I don't know. Say chapter 17, WUI. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts or comments on this, James?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Well, I actually had a question back on, do you have a map that you'd be able to share with me that specifically identifies those lots in the village?
Do you want me to put up the projector?
Or you could share with me at some point? Yeah, I'd love to see where those are, how they are just, you know, distributed across the community.
They're pretty evenly distributed, but one of them in particular is like over half of the area of all of them. One of them is like the big island of the interior.
Okay.
They're very scary and dangerous.
But the one where you would have the most say is the county land.
Yes, yeah.
The county
Yeah.
park.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing that I would encourage you to think about, and we haven't discussed this, but my wife and I visited Australia a year ago, and one of the things that struck me is that every community has a public space that is designed for workouts. You know, and there's a section for kids for their kind of equipment.
Sure.
And then there's a section for adults. It's not just for kids. And our climate here lends itself to that. And I see people walking through the neighborhood. But to use the county land for that kind of a park, you know, it doesn't have to be a big parcel. It doesn't have to be big enough to accommodate a ballpark or that kind of thing.
No, I've seen what you're talking about.
But just to put in some equipment.
Very static equipment. That's,
Exactly.
Night Malo used to have it.
They're
Remember
quick
that?
and a lot.
That'd be
It's
cool.
like no maintenance.
And it's great for kids because it helps them see other people in their community staying fit. And right now we've got this problem with obesity of kids. And it really stresses me to see kids in this kind of shape. And creating a community resource to help combat that and just keep people fit just would make a lot of sense for using that land. And it's right in the middle of the community. No, it's surrounded by homes that are mostly moderate income, low income, moderate income. And those are the families that need that kind of support the most. Anyway, just to put that on your thinking list.
There was a conversation at the WVA budget meeting our dues are going up to raise them even to $5 more, with that $5 per member being allocated to a bigger interior lot budget, and it was not passed. So it's gonna be slow and steady for the interior lots. I think exploring a bill, some fire safety type of requirement for irresponsible overgrowth of open land like this, is warranted. And I think when Matt had a conversation with you about this earlier, we know, like, Parker would probably be really upset about that because it would not be cheap. But I think we can look to Maui as an example. They got really creative. They took parts of, well, Matt, you can explain it better, but they took parts of chapter 17, they applied it to the Maui County Code.
Yeah, they pulled out in 2018, the Maui County Council pulled out sections of chapter 17 and inserted it into their chapter 10 of their fire code. And it got around declaring the full region a wildland urban interface, and it got around every single part of that code coming in. But it is the one that's been cited a little bit about the laws that have been required, that have been in the news a little bit about the Lahaina area. They have cited this a little bit. And this is also coming back to last year, the state house passed all of those bills about upping the penalties for these various code violations, but it doesn't mean a whole lot if the code isn't enforced and in fact. So it's sort of like a toothless thing, possibly. So it all needs to be sorted out and really explained clearly, because right now the landowners are not clearing their land and managing it to the level of expectations that we, the people around it, want and expect.
I actually think this could be a good segue into fire break.
Oh, yes,
Can you
please.
skip ahead?
Well, before we do that, I was just gonna ask James if you would be willing to kind of be the convener of a meeting with fire chief and probably civil defense to think about the implications of adopting that part of the code into the county code.
Okay.
Because it would have to be done by council. And
Probably, yeah.
And, you know, you could be the initiator.
Yep.
But obviously some discussion has to happen.
Sure.
From the departments to figure out what parts of that code would make the most sense here. If we're not going to adopt the whole thing like Maui. But to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my question to you. Would you be willing to take the lead and help make that happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I can work with that.
Oh, okay, could you?
Yeah, I can work with that.
Great.
Start conversations with, at least I can start the conversation with the chief and Talmadge and kind of see where that goes, and then maybe see what we can pull together for a bigger meeting. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I brought it up with the chief back in July,
Yeah.
and I had an introductory meeting with him, and he was generally opposed to it at the time.
Okay.
And it was because of enforcement. He doesn't have the staff and the personnel.
Yep.
It's really what it comes down
Yeah.
to, is that it would be very difficult to keep track of, and that's a valid concern. I hear that, but it's valid, and that's where the expense comes in and all of that.
Isn't there
So-
a fire marshal starting January?
No fire marshal, like, yeah. And the other sort of wrinkle to this whole thing is that it's almost certainly, I do believe it's county council, but I've been having a long conversation with Thomas Heaton at Civil B, and he is firmly convinced that it's actually the planning director that is the one that's supposed to declare the wildland urban interface, and that would put it under the mayor's purview. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, because it hasn't been done in the state, right? So it's not like there's legal precedence on how this is going to go down, but it could either go through council, or it could possibly be executive order, or I think also the Attorney General's office could do it personally, but whatever. There's angles here that need to be explored. I think council is probably the one that's the most palatable to the public.
One of the fire chiefs is going to become the acting fire marshal for the state within a month or so.
Yes,
Oh, really? I didn't realize
agreed,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
There will be one, they've got approved.
Yeah, they're still in the search process for a permanent one.
Right.
One of the fire chiefs is supposed to be.
Are they stepping down from their role, or are they doing that in addition to?
That's not clear to me whether they would step down. I suspect they will, but I don't know that. But it's assumed that whoever's acting will do it for a year.
Okay.
Until they hire a permanent. But once we know there is a fire marshal, they should be engaged in this conversation.
Oh, we will be requesting a meeting with that individual.
Yeah, exactly.
Immediately. That's,
Yeah, but, you know, if James can be the community point on this, it'll be a better voice than ours
Yes.
alone.
Yes, for sure.
And so I appreciate his
Yep.
willingness to take the lead on
I think you should also include the Hawaii Hyena, have them come to a meeting.
Oh, to
For
one
emergency
party.
management.
Great idea.
I sent them an email 4 years ago, right during COVID, and they never got back to me. I got the screen grab, and I requested a meeting. Stupid.
Okay, let's talk about fire breaks for a moment. We had a bunch of fire breaks cut by the state, by the Department of Transportation back in March and April, just Mauka of the village. There's one that is about 9 miles long. That is the water company one that's closest to the village. And there's another one that's about 3 miles long. It's really above the solar farms on the way up. There's also 2 new ones that I finally saw, that we just saw the other day, last Friday when we were driving on the upper road down to Kona. If you make it past Saddle Road and they're driving all the way, you can see them right parallel to the road, especially the one Malka of it is brand new. That's the one that the PTA cut.
That was
with it.
before Pu'ulani Estate.
Yeah, it was between Pu'ulani Estates and like Saddle Road, just Malka of the upper road. And there's also like, looks like they probably expanded the access road just beneath there as well. So it looks like it's almost like 60 feet of like clearance that whole distance. It's pretty impressive.
So we
was
have
kind of marveling at it.
new fire breaks, and I know when you and Bob met with Ed Sniffen, you asked about maintaining them
Mm-hmm.
and who's responsible for maintaining the fire breaks, which is currently, I think, the DOT.
Well, he said that they would go out and help out and do it if we requested it, if it was starting to get overgrown
Remember, he said
in a different way.
he wanted the fire chief
Yes.
to ask him
Yes,
to do it.
precisely. So we gotta get the fire
That's the
chief.
piece
Yes.
that we need to push on.
Yeah, exactly. And he said that he would cut any new ones also if the fire chief said that it was a new one that.
Yeah, if he needed it, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. He did
Does
say
the
that.
fire chief do evaluations ahead of fire season? Like, should we ask him to do that? Should we ask him to like evaluate so that he can formally ask?
Maybe put that as a note on the fire break, how like the fire chief got it. That's a good idea.
Work with fire chief on maintenance.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, between now and March, it's probably not an issue, but once we get past March,
Yeah.
it starts to become an issue again.
Yeah.
And they cut the brakes last March. So, sometime around March, we should be probably pounding the table again, saying, what are you gonna do to clear these brakes now that you've
After
created?
the rains.
It's my understanding that Senator Richards is also pushing state DOT on this side, so.
Okay, good. And actually, that's a good connection right there. I noticed on the lower break above, on the upper road, that there was a long poly pipe, like a long 2-inch irrigation poly pipe, like the entire distance, going to drop tanks for cattle grazing spots. And I would be very enthusiastic about Senator Richards trying to get some funding for that sort of thing right above the village to try and get some cattle up there for vegetation management. So I don't know if that'd be a cheap-ish thing to make happen. I know also fencing is an expense part of it.
You mean grazing as a means of maintaining the fire breaks?
As a means of maintaining just fuel load in general.
Kind of a controlled grazing, though.
Didn't we talk to someone about it who said that then you introduce another problem, which is basically that like the grazing animals create fertile.
Yeah, of course they do, yeah.
That could eventually.
Yes, but it also is the most effective way to get it down without doing controlled fire. Birds.
Sure. Someone said
Which
it's not,
we-
yeah.
Also, we have a conversation about
Yeah.
fire marshal whenever that happens. But no one's going out there with a weed whacker.
Yeah.
So, like, we gotta, so it is an effective way to get it cut down as long as it's implemented properly. But I remember during that meeting, he said that was the hang up was lack of water out there. And so
Right,
we
yeah.
could,
No, it's a worthwhile conversation
Fun,
with Richard, especially because he still lives with agriculture. I think he'd be very insightful on that idea. Yeah.
Free grazing.
I don't know.
It's over $1 million to consider thinking about it a well, because I talked to
Well,
years ago. He said,
Yeah, but would a well be necessary? Is it just piping or is it like full, like, what is necessary? I don't know what is.
It's fencing, because if you want like a controlled rotational grazing, right? Because you have your wild goats, they're grazing, they're picking and choosing, and they're roaming off.
Yeah.
But you have to really have that focused rotational grazing to reduce the fuel load, rotate them out, bring them back. Like it's just, you have to do that. Yeah. So it's the fencing, and it's the water. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, so I think overall on the fire breaks, we're really happy.
Yeah.
We have these new significant and very large fire breaks, but maintenance in my brain is still a giant question mark. It doesn't take much rain before we begin to lose some of the fire breaks to growth.
That also loops back around into chapter 17, which has a provision in the code saying that you are required to maintain fire safety visible to the public, fire safety protection measures.
And chip seal wouldn't be an option to use it just so much. I haven't seen the fire breaks.
Well, you see them when you drive by.
No, yeah, but I mean,
You haven't driven on them. It would be insane.
yeah.
9 miles, and it's really, really rough.
Yeah.
Some parts of it are definitely 4x4.
And WVA is still committed to spraying that one of them, right?
They sprayed them once in June. I don't know if they're committed to
Continuing.
ongoing basis.
But I thought it was only one that they sprayed.
I don't think so.
Was it both?
I thought it was the lower one, both sides of it. They didn't spray the upper one because the upper one wasn't a growing amount. But the lower one, I think they sprayed both the blue side and the Kohala side. I think in the notes, I'd have to go back and look at the meeting notes, but I think they said they even sprayed the other people's land too. So.
So, both the middle one and the upper one on association. Yeah.
The upper one is at the upper border of association. So it's a nice marker line, and if you're driving and you see it,
Okay.
that's the upper edge of our land. And it goes to the border of our land, it stops.
It goes, to Parker Ranch.
I should know as much as you do. Did the WVA ever do anything with the erosion? They're going to get the erosion stuff from the Waikoloa Road papers and put it out there to try to.
Oh, no, okay, well, yeah, no, this is a good status of the fire breaks. No, so WVA never pursued that.
Okay.
I did email Ed Sniffen and Steve Posey directly about that and asked, okay, we've got these giant piles of it's called cold plain asphalt material sitting up there. I said, hey, there's several thousand cubic yards of it. What's the deal? And this is actually only the second time I've ever emailed Ed Sniffen, and he got back to me in 15 minutes. I was so excited that he is on the ball. And then Steve Posey got back to me about 30 seconds after that. I was like, he's I saw that one go. Anyways, the long story short is that the contract with the Bell Brothers involves removing all of that cold plain material and probably recycling it. On a different job once they're done with this, but that needs to be followed up on now that there's a new administration, a new public works director, and all of that. Because they said that would be an interesting thing. Because I just said as long as it's not going to the landfill, and those are flammable. They could catch fire, and they would never ever be able to put them out.
Are they those big rod things that are on the road?
No, those black piles
Oh,
on the roadside.
Yeah.
It's the old
Excavated.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they just stacked it up and piled it. Supposedly they're going to take it away and recycle it and reuse it, but that has not happened yet, and we need to follow up on it again.
And we suggested that they spread it on the fire breaks.
Right.
And they said to me,
Suppress the regrowth.
Yeah, gotcha.
There wasn't actually part of it, because I appreciate you mentioned that. But what I was talking about actually was that the erosion control, they basically put those barriers down. It was like the
hay barriers,
WVA, was going to go out and say, hey, they're picking them up. We could go put them along our road and at least break it down and stop the erosion, some of the flooding. But I didn't hear anything about it after that.
You saying it right now is the first time I've heard it.
Yeah, well, and I never heard.
Yeah, they mentioned they were going to contact them. They contacted them and sort of got approval, but then I never heard that they actually did it.
Is that Roger?
They talked about, somebody mentioned it.
be good to reach out to HWMO because I know for many years this guy Pete down at Puaco. Do you remember Pete? He did all of the wood chip stuff. He would get the stuff from the county, and he had that whole fire break, you know, and he just constantly he was adding wood chips to it, and apparently somehow, yeah, all of
Wood chips, I don't know if that's a fire break, that's something like.
Well, apparently it's
Suppressing the vegetation, right, so like.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess better than
yeah.
this,
I mean,
sure.
HWMO would know. I met him and he did it for years, all over because it was the Kiawe and
Yeah.
I feel like if it's a valid, there's also arborists that live in Waikoloa, what do they do with all their waste?
yeah.
They send it down to the green waste dump that occasionally gets overfilled.
Right.
So yeah, that totally, but
I'm just bringing that.
any of these things that have to go through the WVA are just have to go through the WVA.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Second road?
Second road, I mean, we talked about it extensively, I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to write it all down or not.
Says we
You
don't
have
have
to.
one yet.
Status is there isn't one, but there's been a lot of talking about it.
And so hopefully it's a different conversation in here.
I'm back on this.
Not yet.
I'm really holding out hope for a hopeful January meeting
Yeah.
with Bob and Matt and the developers, that they'll have really good news about funding the road, about plans, about a cost estimate, timeline. Yeah.
Well, we're really counting on John Birch to convince his boss to put up the money. That's what it comes down to at the moment. And, you know, if that plays out, that's great. If it doesn't, then we have to kind of get back in the huddle.
Yeah.
Figure out where we're going.
I would say he seemed optimistic about
I
it
would say
when
he
we
was
met with him.
optimistic, yeah.
Yeah, he was at the inauguration as well, hopefully making connections, keeping the progress going. Yeah, but he did tell us to sort of stand down in terms of pursuing any other funding, while he figured that out.
Yeah, also
Well, he
stand
got
down and
confirmation.
challenging his
Yeah.
project.
Right,
Which we are not challenging this project,
not this minute.
not this minute. Yeah.
That's a great update, that's.
Are there any other sort of big status items around the area? I don't know if we want to talk about different organizations and communities. Is that like a thing that we take under our purview?
I feel like this covers it. I mean, holistically, when we first started WSAW, we talked about, or David Foster really led this conversation of looking at the village as sort of several circles. So you have this outer perimeter of the fire breaks and all of the wildfire pasture lands. Then you come in a little bit closer and you have interior lots. And then you come in even closer and eventually you're talking about evacuation. So I feel like we covered that holistic view that we've been trying to take. I know we've been laser focused on the second road for almost a year. But now that we have a good foundation of where the second road might be, the status of it, I think we can start focusing a little bit more on these other elements. Is there anything we missed?
The power lines and stuff like that, and the fuel load, but that doesn't really, those all feed PSPS and like our relationship with the fire department in Waikoloa. Speaking of which, I just remembered, we went to the Mahalo First Responders Waimea Community Association monthly meeting, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
I think it was a month ago.
It was a month ago.
Okay, well, we went to that a little bit ago. And when we were there, I spoke to Lieutenant Colonel Alvarado, the garrison commander of a PTA, and they want to come and they're going to come present in our meeting probably February, March, April, something of that time frame. So early next year, they're going to send a group down and we'll talk about all the ways in which they are protecting us and doing awesome stuff. So,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, one thing I want to just put out there for reference is that we're a small group. We're all volunteers. We don't have paid staff, and we've got to stay focused on a few things. And right now, our focus has been on the road for the last many months, and I think we've moved the ball in that regard.
Sure.
And I would suggest that the other two priorities for the coming year be to support James and what we've asked him to do to kind of see whether or not this ordinance can be put into place and made enforceable in a way that would address all these fire break issues and the interior lots and making sure that there is some kind of set of standards that are expected to be implemented. You know, whether that there's enough resources to enforce it all is another matter. But if you put in place standards that the village and fire department and others understand are what's expected, things do happen. You know, that's real. And so that's something I think that, you know, James can get a point on, and that can really be a major accomplishment. And the other piece we know is happening is the evacuation plan, because there's money behind it, and the county's committed to making it happen. So those two additional items, I would suggest, be our primary focus, assuming that the road is going to get done. And of course, if the road isn't going to get done, then we have to put resources back into our next round of strategies for that. But to avoid getting ourselves spread too thin, so we no longer have the capacity to keep up with what's going on, I would urge that those two items be recognized as our priorities.
Yes?
It's just a comment from the bushes.
Yes?
Under evacuation plans, I haven't heard any conversation about sirens.
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Sirens.
What's the
I
status of
think Julia
the
has
sirens?
an amazing update for us. Note the sarcasm.
Yes, the
Yeah.
sirens. It's quite alarming, but the rods and they're supposed to be like 15 feet down that are going to secure the sirens. Somebody forgot to give the go-ahead to go ahead with the specs on that. So now we've got the holidays and we've got the tie rods, and they're going to come over from Honolulu. So we're looking at late January, sometime in February.
I'm writing it down, so when we look at this in late January.
I don't know how we turn to March. Are we going to? We're not allowed to bet here in Hawaii, but I would take
The
that.
number of times that those things have been delayed is, and it's the first thing that people just talk about.
Maybe Haima should come in March. We should have them.
We should call, who else is on, is Haima not college?
No, he's civil defense. Haima is in the state,
State emergency.
and they're the ones, and then we can talk to them about.
I thought that college was state technical too.
No. He's
But
county.
he'll interface with Haima for sure, but
Okay.
that's, I mean, they took a big step during the pandemic. Haima was kind of that big interagency at the state level, kind of got in all of that. But
It's actually a military guy that
Yeah,
runs
there's-
it.
Oh, yeah, who's
I think he
in
changed
charge?
guard.
I don't know his name now.
It's a new one.
What's that?
The military, the guy that's in charge, Major.
He left.
Yeah, I know he left, and I don't know who's there now, but
But
it's.
I'm not sure, I've been confused about whether it's Haima or it's DAGS.
No, DAGS is something different. That's a Department of
Accounting and
Accounting and
General
General
But
Services.
they're the ones that buy it and install it, is my understanding.
Oh, yeah,
That's
They approve it.
For the
They approve the
assets.
money.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they approve the money.
they manage all the like state
Well,
facilities.
that's where
In the
I think that's where
library.
the screw up is.
Let me know on
Maybe
that.
for
I
the
think we
funding.
need to understand what the process is.
There's some
Yeah.
guys in a Hilo office buried away
Yeah.
somewhere. that we can talk about.
Yeah, what, is there anything we can do to make this happen? As a group, as a community, is there anything
Oh gosh, my fervent wish is it's before May, because whenever, for us personally too in our house, May comes along and it's hot and it's dry, our emergency bags are always packed and ready to go starting in May.
Mhm.
And to not have one again, a second May, I mean, I've never had one, but it was supposed to first last year be before fire season, and now here we are.
Yep.
And it might be the second. May would be just the line in the sand. We've
Yeah.
got to get it before another hot fire season
Yep.
in Waikoloa, and all of our fires, our big fires here have happened almost all in August.
Right.
So the other
Exactly.
date is like May through
August.
August in my mind is here is the most dangerous.
And that's
To
your
kick
fire-
off the fire
Isn't that
season.
the wildfire month or something?
It is,
It
Yep.
is wildfire month,
Yep.
yes. They could get it done by wildfire month and have a wonderful article written about the good work they did.
Yeah.
It would be great.
They could also pass the first in the state in history, WUI wildland urban
Yes.
interface by August, and that could be all over all the news and,
What was, what you were talking about with chapter 17, did Maui already push their WUI?
So no, they did not declare a.
This is not, it's gotta be a state
It
thing.
took me a while to figure out and track
Yeah.
it down and figure out their county council took a couple of large sections, paragraphs out of chapter 17 and inserted them into chapter 10 of their county fire code.
Okay.
And it wasn't the whole thing, it was just like, 2 or 3 chunks of it, but it is the law they are now citing about all of the vegetation in the gulch and everything around Maui. But it is not, they did not declare a wildland urban interface. It has never been done.
There's none in the state, I know, I told you.
Yes, I know.
Years ago.
No, it took me a while. I was trying to follow it up, and I thought something, because I remember seeing in the news, this
Well,
is
and
actually.
there was an article, I think it was a Hawaii Down, what it allowed was for there to be a punishment and then an enforcement mechanism for unkept dry land,
Right.
like what was above Lahaina. So it allowed the Maui Fire Department to basically go out and say, you have got to clear this land, it's very dangerous.
Right.
And we would love a similar.
Well, that was a state
Somebody
law
else.
that was enhancing the civil penalties for violating the fire code to criminal penalties, right? And the problem is, in most of the state, the fire code doesn't mean anything because it's not clear. And so but it's just a circle that needs to be looped and closed up. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes because it's going to cost the county and very large landowners.
Somebody did get sued for having unmanaged lands over after the Lahaina fire.
Right.
I don't remember who, I don't know.
There was a private landowner.
Bishop, or it was somebody. that
Kamehameha
got-
Schools.
I think Kamehameha Schools was involved.
Kamehameha
But there's
Schools.
there's also a private landowner who owns acres who maintain the land. Yeah, a lot of people were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Liable.
Yes.
The other thing that you haven't talked about, but as I referenced it, is the whole idea of personal. We are our own best first responders. And how do you advocate in your community
For
that people are
certain
doing
fire-wise.
Yeah.
So that's where I was trying to get at. The other sort of factor in our fire safety profile here is a lot of the organizations, and I want to be careful about having that conversation right now. Because there's a lot of feelings and emotions surrounding that, and we are in a space where it's sort of like high school here, and I'm being recorded right now. So I've got a lot of feelings about it, and it's complicated, and that's the first thing that we did when we came here is we started navigating and figuring out who's doing this, who's doing that, who's in charge of this, and where has the ball been held up and where has the ball been dropped. And that's sort of where we're going through here. And there are groups out there that are advocating for that frontline education spot, and I hope to have better integration with this going forward. This brings up actually another sort of thing that I had a very, very, very interesting multi-hour long conversation with Nani, the executive director at HWMO, our co-executive director at HWMO. And one thing that she sort of said would be a good idea is if the village had multiple Firewise committees, if either Paniolo Estates had one, or if maybe we formed one, that could be a more overarching, different facing thing, and that would actually be totally okay and positive from her perspective. So I'm not saying that we all need to go out and do that tomorrow, but that might be a thing that we might want to consider in the next couple of years as things evolve and as the village grows, and then more people are not in the WVA, that there could be a different source for that sort of thing. So yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is not contradicting that. But I guess I live in the world of how do you incentivize others to be their best? And I would think that you've got a voice because of your social media and presence to honor people who are doing good work. You know, so like I think your Firewise just got renewed.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal,
The
and like
NFPA.
nobody knows it.
But that's just the village association.
That's for the village, yeah, but that's a big deal.
Oh, it's for the
That's
village,
clearly-
not the association, it's not I mean, they're part of the committee of the association, but they technically, they report to it, but when I was on the committee, they dropped the association so they could make it inclusive for the whole.
That's not currently the status of it, because you still have to get invited by
That's what I was
by
told.
someone on the WVA to attend the Firewise committee meeting.
Right.
So
Never
there
heard
is a
that.
lot of confusion because of their close relationship with the WVA, which is why I think it's really encouraging that Nani was really telling Matt we should have more Firewise communities. Our village is very, very large.
Wow.
But yeah, I think there's an opportunity, Patty, to highlight people who, there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram of people doing fire and wildfire and emergency things. There's a ton of overlap between many organizations. And that's something that we were talking about last month, what similar or related organizations can we invite in to come and talk to us to further foster a better relationship. But in terms of people taking personal responsibility, I know I've spoken to Tim Richards many times about this in particular, but the thing he is very upset about and has been was in the last evacuation that people didn't evacuate. And so I don't know how to compel people to do what I think would be the right thing and take personal responsibility. And I don't know if that's my job or our job or even Firewise's job. There's an education element, but then I think you just then have to hope people make the right decision for themselves.
Well, the concern there is when people don't evacuate, and as we probably had these discussions and conversations, that the first responders switch from fighting the fire to rescuing
Very
lives,
dangerous,
right?
yeah.
So there's potential of more loss of life, or there's potential for more damage. You know, the scenario changes, right? It's the variables are all shifting then because all your firefighters are now doing a different job.
And maybe that's an opportunity for an evacuation plan to really strongly highlight how important it is that you evacuate, and that this is how to do it.
And us to have a marketing plan surrounding that, like literally going and shoving in people's faces and have a festival, have a mock evacuation, do all sorts of stuff. I don't know what every single one would be, but like getting it in people's faces and we talk about it and it'd be a present thing in the community, I think is very, very powerful.
There'll still be a lot of people that choose not to evacuate.
Yeah, and we can.
Right.
People are
They don't
individual
see
human
the
beings.
fire, they figure if they.
Yeah.
I'm myself thinking,
I have 3 neighbors that just
I'm sorry.
chose.
alcohol might pay for it.
We had friends who said, no,
Or some
I'm
kind of marketing.
and it's
Oh.
really
You cannot, that's,
sad.
everyone is a
I know
human
the
being.
WVA Outreach Committee meeting is working on some information packet or magnet that they talk about, but something where you tell new homeowners how to sign up for all of the emergency alerts that currently exist. So that's something that I know that committee is talking about, which could be an element of, in terms of the personal seeking information or signing up for ways that you can get information.
But unfortunately, the map's not particularly helpful to everyone because as you know, it's a QR code.
Right.
Oh yeah, it would be a QR code.
And
A lot of people don't want
it doesn't work.
I just
A lot
taught
of the
my mom
residents
how to
in the
use
village.
QR
Yeah, I have it on my phone now, so I know how to use it.
I just taught her, so it's possible. I think that's it for this. I know part of it at the last meeting we talked about community outreach opportunities, and so a thing that Kendra and I are going to work on. I'm just going to put you on the spot now, is coming up with our calendar of meetings for next year and starting to invite people to our meetings. When we had Hawaii Water Service here, it was a really great meeting, and so kind of continuing, like I was saying, Patty, of fostering relationships. We'd love to have HWMO here, Haima, Waikoloa guys are super interested in coming. So that's what the...
Can I recommend one too?
Yes, please.
Their vision and their directive is a little different, but it's the South Koala Coastal Partnership. They have, they're really focused on the reef, and impacts on the reef, but through their conversations and recent meetings I've gone to theirs is also about all the upland Mauka lands that impact the reef. So fire, in a sense, when it's burned through all the vegetation, you have erosion, and that clouds the reefs. So that's something that they're also talking about, and so they are that partner to really bring to the table about the wildland urban interface as well.
Right.
So if you're talking about proper management of ag land or land, that's something that we want to have at the table as well.
I will get a contact. If you have
Sure.
a contact, I'll
I
get a
have one.
contact. So
Yep.
we can kind of reach out.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Bob's talking about, taking all this information and the suggestion of what you focus on and talk about it is, you guys are obviously, Matt Bob doing, put a lot into it, all of you, the steering committee are doing a lot of that. But, and I'm gonna come, because I'm interested, I wanna know what's going on, I'm happy to get engaged and help out, with sitting at the booth and talk to people when you do the community. What else do can we who are sitting here, others who've been here, and it's just reaching out and having people come to the meeting and learning more. I mean, maybe if that's the most impact that's coming up is saying, hey, we're going to have a fire chief here, to come talk and learn and listen. Then it becomes that kind of educational thing.
That would be huge. That what you just said would be extremely impactful, because what I've seen as someone who is online a lot is that there are a lot of keyboard warriors in Waikoloa Village, people who talk about, when are we getting a second road? And I say, come to a meeting. When are we getting a second road? Come to a meeting. And so I think if we can bridge the gap of just sort of being upset about it, because, we're upset about it. We do deserve a road. But then coming and really understanding the research that we've done, the status, the true status of the second road, any help we could get in just encouraging people to move their frustration from online and I don't want to say complaining like it's a bad thing. Again, people I think have a right to be really upset about this, but shifting that to then attending and then moving into this advocacy element with us that we've been trying to do.
And I also think along those exact same lines, continuing to reach out to Paniolo Estates and some of these others that aren't part of the WVA, because they are part of the village.
Yes.
And that does matter.
Yes.
So getting them more involved, getting more of them to come to some of these meetings, getting maybe some of them to volunteer with us, I think that would be an effort that would be very healthy for us to approach.
Do you guys ever post your meetings in the breeze?
Actually, I submitted our meetings to the WVA
Because
office
I don't
to
think
put on the
people always.
community calendar,
Yeah.
and it didn't go.
She does
Really?
Nextdoor and Facebook.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Julie, do you want to follow up on that? Do you want to get
I'll follow up on that
Julie,
one.
you follow up and get us in the breeze and get us something on the wall.
That would help, because I don't think everybody looks
Yeah,
at
we can do that, because I'm not doing it, I promise you.
A reader board?
Was that?
A reader board are you talking about?
The board right there, the poster board. Right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
That and the breeze, just,
No,
if we
yeah,
get the WPA
the
channels, that'd be awesome,
Waikoloa
because.
magazine.
Yeah, that would be great.
And non-members can read that, they can get that on the website.
Yeah, and we can put
Well,
that
and a
on.
lot of people don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's I find that the lack of communication, because I have the breeze, I talk to 5 or 6 of my neighbors.
They don't
because
care.
there is stuff in there. Well,
They just-
we just don't have time.
It probably goes into the clutter box because they never open it.
I
It
know.
just, Microsoft just throws it in there.
Oh, it's 30 pages, I mean, like.
Yeah,
I know, half of which are real estate ads, and I'm just like.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
But it is something. Some people
Yeah.
do read it. I don't think we should. I think we should try everything to grow our numbers. We should keep growing our numbers, because what we have found is every time someone new comes to a meeting, they have a new good idea that we want to hear and incorporate.
Well, I think the more you can put in that's meaningful and of interest to people instead of just real estate ads,
Yes.
the better it is. And then more people will be looking at it.
point housing.
So, David, to answer your question from a few minutes ago, like, what else can you guys do? What else, what more can I lead? You're doing it already. Submitting the comments and stuff, that's more than's ever been done in the village, right? And so, like, that's, like, just showing up and like,
General plan.
we wait until we're ready to call for people, right? So when we know that we need to show up with a mass of human beings, then we'll turn on that switch and flip it. But until then, it's just sort of like, let's tread water and sort of identify what we can do with our time and our energy. But we're doing it. It's we're good.
I actually think we should take it a step further. Like, I think there's one thing for advocacy, and I think a lot of us are the similar faces, but I think there needs to be like a specific call to action that everyone takes away from the meeting, right? So like, today's call to action, everyone bring a friend in January. Right? Like, that's all you gotta do. Bring a friend. Bring someone that's never been here, that probably should be here, that lives here, right? Like, I don't know, we need to be really direct with the people who are actually engaged, because I think people do wanna help. And, you know, that applies to all of us, right? So it's like.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we've talked about not wanting to burn out the people who are coming and who do attend our meetings by making too many sort of like, I don't want to say silly ask of them, but we wanted to save their energy for the general plan comments.
Sure.
And then we were able to get all of this momentum and get a lot of comments. We want to make sure our asks are really important. Like Matt said, I envision a world where we have to go get loud and bring a lot of bodies to a Leeward Planning Commission meeting one day, potentially in the future, just to make sure that they see that we have a contingent. And I want to make sure that we're not burning people out before a need like that might arise.
We're not asking people much. In fact, a lot of this organization is load balanced to like 5 people.
Yeah.
Right? So like, so let's be real, right?
Well,
So it's,
you know, when we have a first draft from David of what asks we're going to make for inclusion in the evacuation plan, we should bring that to one of our meetings.
Sure.
And it probably should be the February meeting at the latest.
Sure.
If James is right, that we're gonna have an RFP out for that by January, we should have our set of asks ready for discussion within our group by February. And that should be a major
bring someone who
basis
evacuated
for
with
reaching
someone
out
that
and
would need
asking
to
people to
evacuate.
come and
Yeah.
bring their ideas, engage in that
Sure,
conversation.
but let's talk to David Foster about that. Maybe do that at the January meeting if you can. I'd like to make that happen for sure.
Yeah, if David can get it ready by
That'd
January.
be great. So we can advertise and talk about it. Okay, and speaking of not burning people out and everything, the next upcoming event is the Waikoloa Christmas Community Parade next Saturday, the 14th. And do we want to do this? Do we want to march in it? I think having a booth at least would be good, but I do not want to be the only person marching and manning a booth at the
My
end of the thing.
impression, when I read about it, it's mostly for little kids
Yeah,
outside.
kids, yeah, and dogs.
Yeah. It's not for like.
The dogs, yeah.
Officer
But kids outside.
Justin told us that we should do it. I'm just listening to the cop.
But it's not, it's
You
not
think it's something
really,
we should have?
It's
Okay.
a PE parade,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I volunteer.
Or a booth at the end? Is that not feeling like you don't need a booth at the end either?
No, I don't think it's very festive
Yeah.
to be like, we all might fly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough.
We can skip it.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to share, anything? Yes.
Just some other meetings. You have, there's a Leeward Planning Commission meeting coming up.
Oh, yeah, the 19th.
So on the 19th, they have their regular.
December?
Yes, yeah. They have their regular session at 1 o'clock that day. That one may not interest you, the regular meeting. You can look at that in the agenda. One of the items is the cell phone tower bill that's being discussed, and that's a
let's
little.
go like spot that's all up on Expo right now. The Buco expansion of a house, showing access
Okay.
thing. Sorry.
So that one's at, I don't know if that's on the agenda for the 19th. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
okay? I know that one of the unfinished business is that cell phone tower one. Anyway, but they're that same day at 5 o'clock. They're doing their general plan discussion And my understanding, might be the only one that's held in the evening hours. Because most of them, their general plan discussions, they're breaking the general plan into chapters, and they're discussing about each chapter. But this might be the only one that they're holding in the evening hours, that they're actually putting up staff in Kona to be able to run a late night meeting, basically. So it might be on a specific chapter, but regardless, that's an opportunity for the community to testify on the general plan, another opportunity, of course, and also see the commissioners engage with that chapter of the plan.
When you say discussion, do you mean the planning commission will be discussing like their understanding of the general plan and their decisions, or do you mean it'll mostly be community testimony?
There'll be a portion for community testimony. It'll be a regular meeting, but specifically for the general plan. Like how their structure is, so you can testify at the beginning, because most of them are during the day, right? And a lot of working families can't get to a meeting during the day, so you have kind of just a certain perspective on the general plan that I've seen in some of the meetings. So it'll be, public testimony, and then there'll be a presentation on one of the chapters in the general plan.
The one that Bob and I went to, they did the biodiversity and ecosystems.
So agricultural stewardship.
And then climate change, which actually was really a good one for us to be there for. So they did that first and then testimonies, and then there was a big discussion.
Yep, so it'll be that similar format then.
Okay.
And then, but the commissioners may just speak to that chapter, but they're welcome to speak to the whole plan and think, because everything is like this overlapping stuff. Yeah.
Where is it gonna be?
That'll be at the West Hawaii Civic Center. But yeah, I don't know if they're gonna do another one in the evening hours.
Probably not.
Ours was at 10 a.m., 9 a.m.
If the place was packed, they might see that there was
Yeah.
some interest for it, but my
Yeah.
guess is that it's not,
Yep.
because if it comes in the evening, a lot of people are gonna come home, have dinner, and just aren't gonna be Thursday.
Yeah, and it's a weekday, so it has its challenges too. Yep.
Yeah, okay, I'll put it on our website calendar as well.
Sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Anything else?
So I just want to let everybody know that I'll be singing in a concert on Friday night, and I invite you all to come. It's the holiday music concert for the Kona Choral Society. And it's going to be a lot of fun music, holiday music. So if you can make it, it's at St. Michael's in Kona at 7.
Awesome. That would be it.
We're gonna try to see how little pumpkin over there, how far she makes it.
I bet she would love it.
I bet she will. It's pretty late for her. That's the big problem.
There's a number of sing-alongs
Okay.
as part of this concert, so it's not just singers up on the ride.
Any Frozen songs?
Let it go.
That's one of her Disney.
Awesome.
Anything else, everyone?
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for being here.
Have a happy New Year. First time I said that this year, so
Merry
do that, and
Christmas.
now we'll see you.